My day would be better without you, Marta said, not even looking up from her laptop screen as I walked into our kitchen that Tuesday morning. 23 years of marriage, and that's what I got. Not good morning, or coffee's ready, or even a grunt of acknowledgement. Just a cold dismissal that hit me like a slap across the face. I stood there for a moment, coffee mug halfway to my lips, watching my wife of 2 decades tap away at her MacBook with the intensity of someone defusing a bomb. Her blonde hair was pulled back in that severe bun she'd started wearing to work, all sharp angles and corporate efficiency. When had she become this stranger? Well, I said, setting my mug down harder than necessary, I guess I'll make that happen for you. I walked out. Didn't grab my briefcase, didn't kiss her goodbye like I had every morning for 23 years, didn't even slam the door. Just left. The thing about walking out on your wife is that it feels dramatic for about 15 minutes. Then you're sitting in your car in the driveway, wondering what the hell you're supposed to do next. I work from home 3 days a week as a financial consultant, not exactly the kind of job that requires a dramatic exit to the office. That's when my phone rang. Tom, thank God. Marta's voice was different now, shaky, almost panicked. I need you to come back. There's been an accident. Ross, Amelia, are the kids okay? No, they're fine. It's complicated. Just come back, please. I found her in our living room, pacing like a caged animal. The laptop was closed now, sitting on our coffee table like evidence at a crime scene. She looked up when I walked in, and I saw something I hadn't seen in months. She actually looked at me. What happened? I asked. I sent an email to the wrong person, she said, wrapping her arms around herself. A private email. Very private. Marta worked as a senior account executive at Brennan & Associates, a mid-sized advertising firm downtown. She'd been putting in longer hours lately, coming home with stories about difficult clients and office politics that I'd stopped paying attention to months ago. How private are we talking? She sat down heavily on our couch, suddenly looking older than her 48 years. The kind that could end my career if it gets out. I sat down across from her, studying her face. In the harsh morning light streaming through our windows, I could see the stress lines that had appeared over the past few months. The way she'd started wearing makeup even on weekends, how she'd been working out more and buying clothes that seemed too young for her. Who did you send it to? Dave Millant. I knew Dave, her boss, a smooth-talking opportunist who had been leading Brennan's creative department since the Clinton era, the type of person who still cracked jokes about his secretary's appearance and treated harassment training as just a formality. What was in the email, Marta? She looked away. Things I shouldn't have written down. About work? About someone at work. And there it was, the thing I'd been sensing for months without being able to name it. The late nights, the new clothes, the way she'd started putting her phone face down when she was around me. The distance that had grown between us like a cancer. Who is he? Tom, Who is he, Marta? Jake Turnbull. He's the liaison from Morrison Tech. They're our biggest client. I'd heard the name. Morrison Tech was some kind of startup that had struck gold with a social media app I was too old to understand. Young company, young money, young executives who wore jeans to board meetings and thought they were revolutionizing the world. How long? 2 months, maybe 3. Maybe 3. I laughed, but it came out like a bark. You maybe don't remember when you started seeing someone else? Don't, she stood up, suddenly defensive. Don't make this uglier than it has to be. Uglier than it has to be? I stood up too, feeling something dark and cold spreading through my chest. Marta, you've been cheating on me for 3 months, and you're worried about me making it ugly? It just happened, Tom. We were working late, and... Stop. I held up my hand. Just stop. I don't want to hear the details. But even as I said it, I realized that wasn't true. I wanted to hear everything. I wanted to know exactly how my marriage had fallen apart. Wanted to catalog every betrayal, every lie, every moment when she'd chosen him over me. What did the email say? She was quiet for a long time, then. That I couldn't wait to see him again. That last weekend was incredible, that I'd never felt this way before. Last weekend, when she'd told me she was at a company retreat in Wisconsin, when I'd stayed home and watched Netflix and felt grateful for a quiet weekend alone. Where were you, really? His apartment. I sat back down, suddenly feeling exhausted. Does anyone else know? I don't think so, but if Dave shows that email to anyone, your career is over. My career, my reputation, everything. She sat down next to me, closer than she'd been in months. Tom, I know I've screwed up. I know I've hurt you, but I need your help. I looked at her, really looked at her. For the first time in months. She was still beautiful, still the woman I'd fallen in love with in college. But there was something different now, something desperate and calculating in her eyes. What kind of help? Dave hasn't responded to the email yet. If I could get into his office, delete it from his computer before he sees it. You want me to help you cover up your affair. I want you to help me save our family. Our family? I stood up again, pacing to the window. Outside, our neighbor Mrs. Patterson was walking her ancient golden retriever, the same routine she'd followed every morning for the 5 years we'd lived here. Everything looked normal, suburban, peaceful. Inside, my world was collapsing. Marta, you've been lying to me for 3 months. You've been sleeping with another man, lying about where you go, who you're with, and now you want me to help you hide it? I want us to have a chance to work through this. I turned around to face her. Do you love him? The question hung in the air between us like smoke. She opened her mouth, closed it, looked away. I don't know. You don't know? It's complicated, Tom. He makes me feel young again, alive, like I'm not just someone's wife and someone's mother. Just someone's wife. I felt something break inside my chest. Some last piece of hope or love or whatever had been keeping me tethered to this woman. That's what I am to you? Just someone's husband? That's not what I meant. No, I think that's exactly what you meant. I walked back to the coffee table and picked up her laptop. You know what? Handle your own mess. You want to destroy our marriage for some kid with a trust fund and a startup? Fine, but don't ask me to help you clean up the wreckage. I headed for the door, laptop under my arm. Tom, wait, what are you doing with that? I stopped, turned around, and smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. My day would be better without you, remember? I'm making that happen. I walked out again, this time taking her laptop with me. Behind me, I heard her calling my name, but I didn't turn around. In my car, I opened the laptop. No password. She'd always been careless about security. Her email was still open, the sent message at the top of her inbox, like a confession. Jake, can't stop thinking about last weekend. I've never felt this alive, this desired. Tom doesn't even see me anymore. Can't wait to feel your hands on me again. The conference room after the Morrison meeting. M. I read it 3 times, memorizing every word. Then I forwarded it to myself and deleted the copy from her sent folder. My phone was buzzing with texts from Marta, but I ignored them. Instead, I Googled Jake Turnbull, 28 years old, MBA from Northwestern. Worked at Morrison Tech for 2 years, apparently some kind of golden boy in their business development department. LinkedIn photo showed a guy who looked like he'd stepped out of a catalog. Perfect hair, perfect smile, perfect life. He was younger than our son Ross. I sat in my car for another hour, reading everything I could find about Jake Turnbull and Morrison Tech. Social media posts from expensive restaurants, weekend trips to Aspen, a lifestyle that screamed money and privilege and everything I'd never been able to give Marta. By the time I went back into the house, I'd made a decision. Marta was waiting in the kitchen, her phone clutched in her hand like a lifeline. Did you delete it? She asked. I handed her the laptop. Check for yourself. She opened it, navigated to her email, and I watched relief flood her face. Thank you, she said. Tom, I know this doesn't fix anything, but you're right, I said. It doesn't fix anything. I poured myself a cup of coffee and sat down at our kitchen table. Everything looked the same blue ceramic mugs we'd bought on our 10th anniversary, same morning light streaming through the windows, same woman sitting across from me, but everything had changed. So what happens now? She asked. Now? I took a sip of coffee and looked at my wife. Really looked at her, maybe for the last time. Now you get to see what your day is like without me. The thing about betrayal is that it doesn't just break your heart. It rewires your brain. Over the next few days, I found myself noticing things I'd missed before, remembering conversations differently, seeing patterns where I'd once seen coincidences, like how Marta had started going to the gym at 6 a.m. instead of after work. Better for my schedule, she'd said, but now I wondered if it was really about showering away the smell of another man before coming home to me, or how she'd suddenly developed opinions about wine. Marta had always been a beer and margaritas kind of woman, but lately she'd been talking about tannins and terroir like she was studying for sommelier certification. I'd thought it was cute, this new hobby. Now I realized Jake had probably been educating her palate along with everything else. I didn't confront her about any of it. Instead, I watched, I listened, I planned. The first thing I did was call my lawyer, Patricia Hensley. We'd used her for our wills and the house purchase, and she'd always struck me as the kind of person who didn't sugarcoat things. Tom, she said when I explained the situation, I'm sorry to hear this. How do you want to proceed? I want to know my options. Well, Illinois is a no-fault divorce state, so the affair itself won't impact the settlement much, but if you can prove she spent marital assets on the relationship, expensive dinners, hotels, gifts, that could be considered dissipation of marital assets. What about custody? Ross is 22, and Amelia's 20, so custody isn't an issue. But if you're thinking about college expenses, support, that kind of thing, I wasn't really thinking about any of that yet. Mostly I was thinking about Jake Turnbull's perfect smile and wondering how it would look with a few teeth missing. Just keep track of everything, Patricia said. Bank statements, credit card bills, phone records if you can get them, and Tom, don't do anything stupid. Too late for that, I thought. The second thing I did was start following Marta. I know how that sounds. I know it makes me the kind of man I used to shake my head at, the kind who shows up on daytime talk shows to accuse his wife of sleeping with the mailman. But I needed to see it for myself, needed to understand the scope of what I was dealing with. Thursday night, she said she was working late. I parked across from Brennan and Associates and waited. At 7:30, she came out of the building with Jake Turnbull. He was exactly what I'd expected, tall, lean, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my car payment. They walked to his car, a black BMW that looked like it had just rolled off the lot, and I followed them to Enzo's, an Italian place downtown that Marta and I had never been to because we couldn't afford it. I sat in my car across the street and watched them through the restaurant's floor-to-ceiling windows. They were at a corner table, leaning toward each other like teenagers, and I could see Marta laughing at something he said. She looked happy in a way I hadn't seen in years. When they left the restaurant, they didn't go back to their cars. Instead, they walked 3 blocks to the Marriott. I didn't follow them inside. I didn't need to see that part. Instead, I drove home and sat in our living room, surrounded by 23 years of marriage. Wedding photos on the mantel, family vacations documented in frames scattered around the room, Ross's high school football trophies still displayed on the bookshelf next to Amelia's debate team awards. Marta came home at 11:30, slipping in quietly like she thought I might be asleep. I was sitting in the dark, and she jumped when she saw me. "Tom, why are you sitting in the dark?" "Couldn't sleep," I said. "How was work?" "Long day, really long." She was already moving toward the stairs, not meeting my eyes. "I'm exhausted. Going to bed?" "Marta!" She stopped, turned around. "How's the Morrison Tech account going?" Even in the dim light from the hallway, I could see her face change. "Fine. Why?" "Just wondering. You've been working on it a lot lately." "It's a big account, important for the company." "I'm sure it is." She stood there for another moment, like she wanted to say something else, then went upstairs. I heard the shower running for a long time. Friday morning, she was gone before I woke up. She'd left a note on the kitchen counter. "Early meeting. Don't wait up tonight. Team dinner for Morrison Project." I crumpled up the note and threw it away, then immediately retrieved it and smoothed it out. "Evidence," Patricia had said. "Keep track of everything." That afternoon, I called Ross. "Dad, what's up?" My son sounded distracted, probably studying. He was in his final semester at Northwestern, majoring in engineering like his old man. "Just wanted to hear your voice. How are classes?" "Brutal, but manageable. Mom said you guys might visit for graduation?" "We'll see." I paused, wondering how much to tell him. "Ross, have you noticed anything different about your mom lately?" "Different how?" "I don't know, just different. She seemed kind of stressed when I was home for spring break. But she's always stressed about work, right?" "Right." "Is everything okay, Dad?" "Everything's fine, just checking in." But everything wasn't fine, and we both knew it. Ross had always been perceptive. Even as a kid, he could sense the tension between Marta and me. Probably had been sensing it for months. After I hung up, I sat in my home office and stared at my computer screen. I had work to do, quarterly reports for 3 clients, a presentation for next week, but I couldn't focus on any of it. Instead, I found myself Googling Jake Turnbull again. This time, I dug deeper. I found his college fraternity page, his marathon times, his Venmo transactions that were set to public for some reason. The guy was an open book, apparently secure enough in his perfect life that he didn't worry about privacy. His Venmo showed payments to Marta, dinner at Enzo's, wine at some place called Vintage, a charge for something called Weekend Getaway that made my stomach turn. He was paying for their dates. My wife was letting a 28-year-old kid wine and dine her like she was some college sophomore. I screenshotted everything. That night, Marta came home smelling like wine and wearing a dress I'd never seen before. She was trying too hard to act normal, asking about my day and chattering about her team dinner in a way that felt rehearsed. "How's Jake working out?" I asked casually while we were cleaning up the kitchen. She froze, a wine glass halfway to the dishwasher. "What?" "Jake Turnbull, the Morrison Tech liaison. You mentioned he was new to the account." "Oh, right. He's very professional, good to work with." "Young guy?" "I guess. I hadn't really noticed." She hadn't noticed. "Right. Must be nice working with young, energetic people. Keep you feeling young yourself." She looked at me sharply. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing. Just an observation." But she was rattled now. I could see it. Good. That weekend, she said she was going shopping with her sister Victoria. Victoria lived in the suburbs, was married to a tax attorney, and had never worked a day in her life. She spent her time organizing charity luncheons and judging other people's life choices. I'd never liked Victoria, and the feeling was mutual. She thought Marta had married beneath her when she chose me over the pre-med student she'd been dating senior year. 23 years later, Victoria still made little comments about our house, our cars, our vacations, always just subtle enough to maintain plausible deniability. "Tell Victoria I said hello," I said, as Marta grabbed her purse. "I will. And tell her thanks." "Thanks for what?" "For being such a good influence on you lately." Marta stared at me for a moment, then left without another word. I didn't follow her this time. Instead, I drove to Jake Turnbull's apartment. I'd found his address online. Amazing what you can discover about someone with a little effort. He lived in one of those new luxury complexes downtown, all glass and steel and amenities that cost extra. His BMW was in the parking garage, along with Marta's Honda. I sat in my car for an hour, imagining what they were doing upstairs, feeling that cold darkness in my chest spread a little further. When I got home, I called Patricia. "I want to move forward with the divorce," I said. "Are you sure? Sometimes these things can be worked through with counseling." "I'm sure." "Okay, I'll start drafting the papers. But Tom, remember what I said about not doing anything stupid." "I remember." But as I hung up, I was already planning something very stupid indeed. Monday morning, I woke up to find Marta already gone. Another early meeting, according to the note she'd left. But this time, she'd made a mistake. She'd left her laptop open on the kitchen counter, still logged into her email. I should have closed it and walked away, should have maintained what was left of my dignity and let Patricia handle things through proper legal channels, should have been the bigger person. Instead, I started reading. The emails between Marta and Jake went back 4 months, not 3 like she'd told me. They'd started professionally enough, meeting schedules, project updates, the usual corporate correspondence. But by February, the tone had changed. "Jake, thanks for dinner last night. I can't remember the last time I laughed that much. Don't tell anyone at the office. M. Marta. Your secret is safe with me. Same time next week? J." By March, they weren't even pretending it was about work. "I can't stop thinking about you. This is crazy, but I don't want it to stop. M. You're not crazy. You're incredible. J. And then, from last week, Tom is getting suspicious. We need to be more careful, but I can't give this up. I can't give you up. J. I read that one 3 times, feeling something ugly and violent twist in my stomach. They'd been talking about me, planning around me, treating me like an obstacle to navigate rather than a human being whose life they were destroying. But it was the email from Victoria that really made me lose my temper. "Marta, stop feeling guilty. You deserve to be happy. Tom has never appreciated what he has. Maybe this will be the wake-up call he needs. V." So Victoria knew, had known all along, apparently, and had been encouraging it. My wife's sister, who I'd tolerated for 23 years, who'd eaten at my table and accepted my Christmas gifts and smiled to my face while talking shit behind my back. I forwarded all the emails to myself, then deleted the forwarded copies from Marta's sent folder. If she noticed, I'd deal with that later. Then I started planning. The first phase was information gathering. I hired a private investigator, a grizzled ex-cop named Frank Morrison who came highly recommended and charged reasonable rates. I felt like a cliché, but I needed documentation that would hold up in court. "Standard cheating spouse package," Frank said when I met him at a diner downtown. "Photos, timeline, financial records. Usually takes 2 weeks to get what you need." "How much?" $2,000 plus expenses. It was money we didn't really have, but I figured it was an investment in my future, a future without Marta. The second phase was more personal. I started showing up places where I knew they'd be. Not stalking exactly, just making my presence known. When Marta said she was working late, I'd stop by Brennan and Associates with coffee, just to be nice. When she mentioned a client dinner, I'd suggest meeting her afterward for drinks. It was amazing how quickly she ran out of excuses. "Tom, you can't just show up at my office," she said after I'd surprised her 3 days in a row. "Why not? I thought you'd appreciate the gesture." It's disruptive." "Disruptive to what?" She didn't have an answer for that. The third phase was social media. Jake Turnbull, it turned out, was an oversharer. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. The guy documented every meal, every workout, every thought that crossed his mind. And he was terrible at privacy settings. I created fake accounts and started following him, learning his routines, his habits, his favorite places. The gym he went to every morning at 6 a.m., the coffee shop where he worked remotely on Fridays, the bar where he met friends every Thursday night. I started showing up at these places. Not to confront him, not yet, but to study him. To understand what Marta saw in him, what he had that I didn't. The answer, it turned out, was youth and money and the kind of casual confidence that comes from never having anything really bad happen to you. Jake Turnbull was a golden boy who'd sailed through life on looks and charm and family connections, and it showed in everything he did. At the gym, he flirted with the trainers and took selfies between sets. At the coffee shop, he held loud phone conversations about deals and partnerships, making sure everyone could hear how important he was. At the bar, he bought rounds for his friends and tipped extravagantly, the kind of guy who thought money could solve any problem. I hated him, but I also understood why Marta was attracted to him. He represented everything our marriage wasn't: excitement, adventure, possibility. I represented stability, reliability, the known quantity she'd grown tired of. After 2 weeks of watching Jake Turnbull live his perfect life, I was ready for Phase 4. Frank called me on a Thursday morning with his report. "Got everything you need," he said. "Photos, hotel receipts, the works. They're not exactly subtle about it." We met at the same diner, and he handed me a manila envelope that felt like it weighed 100 pounds. The photos were worse than I'd expected. Marta and Jake holding hands outside restaurants, kissing in parking garages, entering and leaving hotels together. In some of them, she looked happier than I'd seen her in years. "Financial stuff is interesting, too," Frank said. "Guy's been paying for everything. Dinners, hotels, even bought her jewelry. Found receipts for a necklace that cost more than most people make in a month." "What necklace?" "Diamond pendant, from Cartier." I'd never seen Marta wear any expensive jewelry. She must have been keeping it at the office or at his place. "There's something else," Frank said. "The guy's got a reputation. This isn't his first affair with a married woman. Found 2 other instances in the past 3 years, both clients from his previous job." "What happened to those relationships?" "Both ended badly. One woman got divorced, lost her kids in the custody battle. The other one's husband found out and made a big scene at her office. She ended up getting fired." So Jake Turnbull had a pattern. He seduced married women, enjoyed the thrill of the affair, then moved on when things got complicated. Marta wasn't special to him. She was just the latest conquest. "What do you want to do with this information?" Frank asked. "I want to destroy him." Frank raised an eyebrows. "Legally destroy him, I hope." "Of course." But as I drove home with the envelope of evidence on my passenger seat, I was thinking about much more than legal destruction. That night, Marta came home early for once. She seemed nervous, distracted, like she was working up the courage to say something. "Tom, we need to talk." Here it comes, I thought. The confession, the apology, the request for forgiveness or divorce or whatever she'd decided she wanted. "Okay." She sat down across from me at the kitchen table, the same table where we'd eaten thousands of meals together, where we'd helped our kids with homework, where we'd planned our future back when we thought we had one. "I think we should try counseling." Not what I'd expected. Counseling. "I know things have been difficult between us lately. I know I haven't been the best wife, but I think we can work through this." "Work through what, exactly?" "The distance, the problems we've been having." I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw something I hadn't expected. Fear. She was afraid of losing me, afraid of losing the life we'd built together, but not afraid enough to stop seeing Jake Turnbull. "What about Jake?" She went very still. "What about him?" "Are you going to stop seeing him?" "Tom, I don't know what you—" I pulled out my phone and showed her one of Frank's photos. Marta and Jake kissing outside the Marriott, her hands tangled in his perfect hair. She stared at the photo for a long time, her face cycling through surprise, shame, and finally defiance. "How long have you known?" "Long enough." "How long have you been having me followed?" "Does it matter?" She stood up, suddenly angry. "Yes, it matters. You had me stalked, Tom. You hired someone to spy on me. You've been cheating on me for 4 months and lying about it every single day, but I'm the bad guy for finding out? That's not what I meant. No, I think that's exactly what you meant. I stood up too, feeling 23 years of marriage crumbling around us. You want to have your affair and your marriage too. You want to be with Jake Turnbull and come home to me and pretend everything's normal. Don't talk about it like that. Like what? Like exactly what it is? She was crying now, but I felt no urge to comfort her. The woman I'd loved for half my life was gone, replaced by this stranger who thought she could have everything without consequences. I never meant for this to happen, she said, but it did happen, and you kept choosing it every day for 4 months. I was going to end it. When? Soon. I needed time to figure things out. You needed time to decide between your husband and your boyfriend. It's not that simple. It's exactly that simple, Marta. You made a choice. Every time you met him, every time you lied to me, every time you came home and pretended to be my wife, you made a choice. I picked up the envelope of photos and evidence. So now I'm making mine. The divorce papers were served on a Wednesday. I wasn't home when the process server came. I was at my office downtown, trying to pretend I could still focus on quarterly reports and client presentations while my life exploded around me. Marta called me 17 times that afternoon. I let them all go to voicemail. By evening, the messages had evolved from shock to anger to something approaching panic. Message 1. Tom, what the hell is this? Call me back. Message 7. You can't just blindside me like this. We need to talk. Message 15. Please, Tom, don't do this. We can work it out. Message 17. I'm coming to your office. I was packing up my briefcase when she walked in. My secretary had left for the day, and the building was mostly empty. Marta looked like she'd been crying for hours. Tom, please, can we just talk about this like adults? I thought we were talking like adults, I said, not looking up from my desk. You made adult decisions. These are adult consequences. You're asking for everything? The house, the cars, half my retirement account. I'm asking for what I'm entitled to. What about what I'm entitled to? I've worked for 23 years, too. I finally looked at her. You worked, Marta, but you also spent the last 4 months seeing another man and lying about it, so forgive me if I'm not feeling generous about your entitlements. She flinched like I'd slapped her. Good. The kids are going to be devastated. The kids are adults. They'll survive. Ross graduates in 2 weeks. I'll be there. Together? As a family? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. We're not a family anymore, Marta. You made sure of that. She sat down in the chair across from my desk, suddenly looking smaller. What do you want from me, Tom? You want me to grovel? You want me to beg? I want you to sign the papers. And if I don't? Then we go to court, and all of this becomes public record. Your affair, Jake's pattern of seducing married clients, Victoria's role in encouraging it, everything. Her face went white. You wouldn't. Try me. We stared at each other across my desk. 23 years of marriage reduced to this moment of mutual destruction. I loved you, she said quietly. Past tense, I noticed. I still love you. That's why this is so hard. If you loved me, you wouldn't have been sending emails to your sister about how I never appreciated you. If you loved me, you wouldn't have let a 28-year-old kid pay for jewelry you never showed me. If you loved me, Marta, you would have talked to me before you started seeing someone else. She was crying again, but I felt nothing. The man who would have comforted her, who would have handed her tissues and rubbed her back and promised everything would be okay, that man was gone. What about Jake? She asked. What about him? Are you going to do something to him? I smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. Jake Turnbull is about to learn some very interesting lessons about consequences. Tom, don't, please. Whatever you're planning. I'm not planning anything illegal, if that's what you're worried about. Then what? You'll see. She left without signing the papers, but I wasn't worried. She'd sign them eventually. She didn't have a choice. The next morning, I put Phase 5 into motion. I'd spent weeks learning Jake Turnbull's routines, and I knew he had coffee every Friday at a place called Grind on State Street. He usually sat at the same table, worked on his laptop, and held court with whatever startup bros happened to be there. I got there early and claimed the table next to his usual spot. Jake walked in at exactly 9:15, just like always. Perfect hair, perfect suit, perfect confidence. He ordered his usual, some complicated drink with oat milk and extra shots, and settled in at his table. I waited until he was absorbed in his laptop, then accidentally knocked over my coffee. It spilled across both tables, soaking his computer and his expensive suit. Oh, shit. I'm so sorry, I said, jumping up with napkins. Jesus Christ, Jake muttered, trying to save his laptop. Watch what you're doing. I feel terrible. Let me buy you another coffee. Get your suit cleaned. He looked up at me for the first time, and I saw the exact moment he realized who I was. His face went very still. You're Tom, he said, and you're Jake Turnbull. Nice to finally meet you. We stared at each other across the coffee-soaked table. He was younger than I'd expected, almost boyishly handsome in a way that probably made women want to take care of him, but there was something calculating in his eyes, something that suggested he was already figuring out how to handle this situation. Look, Mr. he started. Henderson. Tom Henderson. Marta's husband. Right. Look, I think there might be some misunderstanding. No misunderstanding. I know exactly who you are and what you've been doing with my wife. The coffee shop had gone quiet around us. Other customers were pretending not to listen while obviously hanging on every word. Maybe we should take this outside, Jake said. Good idea. We walked out onto State Street, the morning crowd flowing around us like we were rocks in a stream. Jake was trying to clean coffee off his laptop with his jacket, and I could see him calculating the damage, financial and otherwise. I want you to stay away from my wife, I said. It's not that simple. It's exactly that simple. Look, Tom, can I call you Tom? I understand you're upset, but Marta and I, what we have is real. It's not just some fling. Real, I laughed. You mean like it was real with Jennifer Walsh or Sarah Chen? His face changed. I don't know what you're talking about. Jennifer Walsh, divorced mother of 2 from your last job. Sarah Chen, marketing executive, also married. Should I go on? You've been investigating me. I've been protecting myself, and what I found is that you have a pattern, Jake. You seduce married women, enjoy the thrill for a few months, then move on when things get complicated. That's not... Marta is different. Is she? Because from where I'm standing, she looks like just another conquest, another bored housewife who made you feel important. You don't know anything about what Marta and I have. I know she's getting divorced because of you. I know she's about to lose half of everything she's worked for. I know her kids are going to find out their mother chose a boy young enough to be their brother over their father. Jake was getting angry now, his perfect composure starting to crack. Maybe if you'd been a better husband, she wouldn't have needed to find someone else. And there it was, the arrogance, the entitlement, the casual cruelty of someone who'd never faced real consequences. You're probably right, I said. I probably wasn't the husband she deserved. But you know what, Jake? You're not going to be either. What's that supposed to mean? It means I've sent copies of all your emails with Marta to Morrison Tech's HR department, along with documentation of your previous affairs with clients. His face went white. You can't do that. I already did. I'm guessing your boss will want to have a conversation with you about professional conduct and company liability. You bastard! I also sent copies to Jennifer Walsh's ex-husband and Sarah Chen's divorce attorney. Turns out they're very interested in your pattern of behavior. Jake was shaking now, either with rage or fear. You're destroying my career. No, Jake. You destroyed your career. I'm just making sure everyone knows about it. Marta will never forgive you for this. Marta doesn't get a vote anymore. I started to walk away, then turned back. Oh, and Jake? That diamond necklace you bought her? The one from Cartier? She's going to have to sell it to pay her divorce attorney. Thought you should know. I left him standing on the sidewalk, looking like someone had just explained mortality to him for the first time. That afternoon, my phone rang. Victoria. Tom, what the hell do you think you're doing? Hello, Victoria. How are you? Don't you dare take that tone with me. Marta is devastated. She's been crying for 2 days. I'm sorry to hear that. No, you're not. You're enjoying this. She wasn't wrong. What do you want, Victoria? I want you to stop this nonsense and work things out with your wife. My wife spent 4 months cheating on me with a kid half her age. With your encouragement, according to her emails. Silence on the other end of the line. You knew about the emails, Victoria said finally. I know about everything, including your little pep talks about how Marta deserved better than me. She does deserve better than you. Maybe. But she chose me 23 years ago, and she chose to stay married to me right up until she chose to start seeing Jake Turnbull. So forgive me if I'm not taking marriage advice from someone who's been sabotaging mine. I wasn't sabotaging anything. I was supporting my sister. You were enabling her affair. I was helping her find happiness. By destroying her marriage. Her marriage was already destroyed, Tom. You just weren't paying attention. That stung because there was truth in it. Marta and I had been drifting apart for years, growing into different people who wanted different things, but that didn't excuse what she'd done, or Victoria's role in it. "Well, congratulations," I said. "Your sister is about to be very free to pursue her happiness. I hope it works out for her." "You're making a mistake." "The only mistake I made was trusting the wrong people." I hung up on her, feeling something like satisfaction for the first time in weeks, but the satisfaction didn't last long. That evening, Ross called. "Dad, what's going on? Mom called me crying, saying you're getting divorced." I closed my eyes. I'd been dreading this conversation. "It's complicated, son. She said you hired a private investigator, that you're trying to take everything in the divorce." "I'm trying to protect myself." "From what?" "How do you tell your son that his mother has been cheating? How do you explain that the woman who raised him, who he loves and respects, has been living a lie for months?" "Your mother and I have grown apart," I said finally. "We want different things." "That's not what she said." "What did she say?" "That you've changed, that you've become someone she doesn't recognize." I laughed bitterly. She's not wrong about that. "Dad, are you okay? You sound..." "I sound like what?" "Angry. Really angry." "I am angry, Ross. I'm angrier than I've ever been in my life." "At Mom?" "At a lot of people." We were quiet for a moment. Then Ross said, "Is there someone else?" Smart kid. Too smart. "You should ask your mother that question." "I'm asking you." "Yes, there's someone else." Another long silence. Then, "Jesus, Dad, I'm sorry. It's not your fault. Is there anything I can do?" "Just be prepared for things to get ugly. Your mother and I are probably going to say things about each other that you don't want to hear." "Are you going to be okay?" "I'm going to be fine, Ross. Better than fine." But as I hung up, I wondered if that was true. I was about to destroy my wife's life, her lover's career, and probably my relationship with my kids. I was about to become the villain in my own story. The strange thing was, I was looking forward to it.